All right, I'll call to order this meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency. This is a special meeting. We'll start with a roll call.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lemus.
Here.
Mayor Ford.
Here. And we start our meetings with a land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite you to stand and join me if you wish.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on this land acknowledgement, sir. You've had a week to look up the law, sir, and I just want to be able to...
Please be quiet. Please be quiet. This is not time for public comment. The law is clear. However, I will ask my colleagues if anybody objects to moving tonight's public comment period to now instead of after the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody okay with that? Okay, so we're going to move the public comment period. Please do not interrupt the meeting.
Sir, you're on land acknowledgement. I'm not asking to speak on
All right.
business.
Right now is not the time for public comment. And
I just lodged my
please be,
objection, and I will sit down.
you have lodged your objection multiple times.
Trial, sir, I just want to say, I'm going to object under Government Code 54954.3. I have a right to speak on this. I want to reserve my right for trial, sir. Thank you. I'll sit down. I object.
And I will point out, I just gave you an opportunity to speak on that item before it occurred. All right, we will continue to the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. And now the pledge.
Sir, I'd like to speak on the Pledge of Allegiance, sir. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on this agenda.
The Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Speak on this matter, please. There's a government code and we'll have to speak on each and every item.
Mr. Barrich, it is not the time for public comment, and you are disrupting the orderly proceedings of this meeting. You are welcome.
On citizens' business, I wish to speak under the Pledge of Allegiance. You took action. If you get to speak, the public gets to speak, sir. That's what the law is. If you break down the law, that's what it
Mr. Barrich, as I just explained, it is not the time for public comment, and you are disrupting the orderly proceedings of this meeting. Your refusal to wait until the appropriate time in the meeting is delaying everyone's ability to be heard on our agenda items and disrupting the proceedings. I'm asking you again to refrain from disrupting the orderly conduct of these proceedings. We're going to take a brief recess. Please.
I object. You're violating the law, sir.
does, yeah. I went twice.
I really am interested in hearing like what anybody from your neighborhood, like if you hear from HOA
Okay,
folks, or-
yeah. We've got a meeting coming up, so I'll see if we hear anything.
even if people have contrary.
Yeah, I did see some people there, which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but just like impacts. anything
yeah,
on the road,
yeah.
all that
No,
stuff.
it was, I thought it was well done, and the weather was good, there was a good crowd, and all the tables were done really well, all the exhibitors did a really good job, I thought, yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Mr. Mayor, if you're going to deny me my right, you can move on to the next agenda item, sir. But I need you to deny me that right or allow me to speak. That's very simple.
I have made it very clear that this is not the time for public comment.
Deny my right under this.
I am not denying any right. I am not denying any right, and this is not a back and forth. Sir, this is not the time for public comment, and you continue to disrupt the meeting.
The Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
This is,
If you're just if you're going to deny me the right, deny me and I sit down. That easy. Are you denying me the right to speak on the Pledge of Allegiance?
I have made it very clear that this is not the time for public comment.
Sir, it's a yes or no answer. Are you denying
Sir, this
me
is
the
not
right
the time
to
for
speak
public comment. You may be
item
seated.
Of Pledge of Allegiance. Okay?
You continue to disrupt these proceedings.
Disrupting, sir.
You are very much disrupting.
Mr. Barrett, I deny you the right to speak on the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will sit in my chair. But you can't do it, sir, because
I
you're
am-
going to entangle yourself into a federal lawsuit.
I am not reading your script. This is not the time for public comment.
I want to speak on this item, sir. It's
Right
either
after-
yes or no.
We have
Or the
two,
judge say yes or no, sir.
we have t-
Yes.
two items coming up that both have public comment period. You are welcome to speak to.
Other matters to speak on.
Sir, you are keeping everybody from holding this meeting.
You wasted 5 minutes of our time going outside when I needed to speak for 60 seconds on the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, if you want to keep wasting people's time and take another recess, you're able to. I'm asking you, may I speak on the Pledge of Allegiance or not, sir?
The Pledge of Allegiance is not an item of consideration under, I agree. So please sit down. Please sit down.
Are you denying me the right, sir, to speak?
I am telling you this is not the time for public comment, and you are disrupting the meeting.
I want to speak on the Pledge of Allegiance, yes or no?
You may speak at the public comment period on anything you like.
No, I want to speak on this item, sir, now. I want my 3 minutes now, or you can deny me the right, and I will surely sit down, sir. It's that easy. You're in a leadership position, sir. The law is clear. Allow me to speak or deny me. Then I will continue.
This is not the time for public comment. Please sit down.
Are you denying me the right, sir?
This is not the time for public comment. You are disrupting the meeting.
I am not disrupting this.
You are very much disrupting
I
the,
have a right to speak on this.
we are now
Can
10
I
minutes
speak on this
past.
item or not?
No, this is not the time for
No.
public comment.
Is that no? A no answer? Come on, critical thinking skills, Mayor. All right? Critical thinking skills. Yes or no? May I speak on the Pledge of Allegiance or not?
This is not the time for public comment. No, there is no public comment time on the Pledge of Allegiance, since it is not an item for consideration.
I think you made that just clear. Thank you, sir.
Yes, I made it very clear. All right, we are on to approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and/or adopted under this agenda. There is one set of minutes from February 18th, 2025. Did anybody on council have any corrections? Okay, I'll open this up for public comment. Do we have a Zoom audience tonight?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mayor Ford. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. Lori, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Thank you. The next hand is from Braden Eggert. You have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Braden Eggert. I'm a concerned former City of Cotati employee for code enforcement. I'm calling to demand immediate accountability and transparency regarding what's been what appears to be fraudulent, unethical, and potentially criminal behavior by Robert Allen Smith and certain City of Cotati officials. Despite repeated attempts to contact this council, including direct calls to every member, not a single one of you has had the decency or professional obligation to return my call. This silence is unacceptable and speaks volumes. We're talking about clear indications of deprivations of rights under the color of law, fraudulent business practices being carried out under the city's authority, and serious questions about the misappropriation and possible embezzlement of public funds. If you believe ignoring this matter will make it go away, you are mistaken. You are all now on notice, and if I do not receive a response, I will escalate this to the state and federal oversight bodies, including the California State Auditor and Sonoma County Civil Grand Jury and the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Public servants are not above the law, and the people of Cotati deserve answers. My next call will be to the press. You can reach me at my phone number that you have in your voicemail. I expect a reply within 72 hours. Thank you, and good luck justifying your silence to the public.
So,
Seeing no further hands, that will end the Zoom portion of public comment. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So back to the council for approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the special meeting on February 18th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, 5-0. Thank you. Now we move on to public comment. So this is a special meeting. Pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.3a, members of the public wishing to address the council may do so at the beginning of the special meeting, and such comments shall be limited to the special meeting topic, which is the draft strategic planning summary and budget study session. I realized I forgot to take public comment in the chambers on the minutes, I believe. So was there anybody wishing to speak on the minutes in the chambers? Okay, thank you, sorry about that. Now back to public comment, the general public comment period. So we'll start in the chambers for this one. Anybody wishing to make public comment? Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for any tension in the room. It's really not necessary. Regarding citizens' business, you know, Mayor, I've requested politely and professionally many times now to be addressed and called up to the podium as former Cotati City Councilman George Berich, or Councilman George Berich, which is my official title under rules of etiquette. You refuse to do this, and I think it smacks of unprofessionalism, and if I didn't know any better, I would think that you're jealous. You have some axe to grind, that you have some internal disgust for people who come before you with honesty and concern and will state alternative facts. And it's really embarrassing our town that you would be this crass and this disrespectful. It should end. It's really tarnishing our town's reputation. And I think you need to get over it. Just to step up as a man and just address me as I've requested to be addressed by. On another matter, last week you appointed another member to the Planning Commission. And you have a convicted money launderer now on the Planning Commission. You all know it. She was convicted. And to Mr. Savage's point that, you know, she seems to have made amends with the community or words to that effect, Mr. Savage, I would say Berman never apologized to anybody for her actions, never explained herself to the FPPC. She never paid back the money she hustled out of me. She never paid back the money to other people. She slithered out of town to escape justice. Like a carpetbagger, and then came back in when things cooled down a little bit, and you guys had the nerve to reappoint her to the Planning Commission. It's scandalous. She's a con artist. She's not very bright. We've watched her on the Planning Commission. She can't seem to grasp half the issues that our staff brings before her. I'd like you to reconsider. Now, regarding your interpretation of the law on the government code, which I've cited, if you're relying on our city attorney, Mr. Bacher, for legal advice, I would warn you not to do so. He just wants the litigation for the legal fees and for his firm. I've seen this happen in the past, and I want you to be very aware of what's going on here. Mr. Bacher does not benefit after telling you what the law is and the pros and cons of the law. What he gets a financial advantage of is getting the city into legal hot water. And I'll give you a case
Please
in
wrap
point.
up.
Yeah, case in point. Robin Donahue is our city attorney here for years. And by her giving Mayor Deloso bad legal advice, she cost the city over $300,000 in city legal fees and
your
my
time is
legal
up,
fees.
sir.
So
Thank you.
we have a case study where she never apologized and she cost the city a lot of money giving bad legal advice. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else in the chambers for public comment on the special meeting topic? Okay, let's check with the Zoom audience.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori Alderman. Lori, you have the floor.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank Braden Eggert for coming forward. And obviously, you all have no scruples in that you did not reply to him. There are 67 pages in the information packet of what this code enforcement scandal has been going on. It's not Angela's fault. She's reporting numbers. It's the Robert Smith is into criminal acts. Even since this one, we found out that since I done this one the other day, that Robert Smith hires the judges. He's the prosecuting attorney. He's a code enforcement inspector. He does all this roles, and that's illegal. We have no idea of how many minutes, much of money has not been paid of services. He hasn't billed for months. And this is, I've been telling you since last June. I've been saying reel in code enforcement since November of 23, and you've done nothing. You've not wrote me, you've not done anything. So I hope you decide to do something tonight and not pass a budget, or you're going to be liable, personally liable. Federal Judge Chen saw a city council meeting in our lawsuit and decided, why did you listen to the city attorney when you had the smartest person in the room was Lori Alderman? And I still think I'm the smartest person in this room, that you guys can make these petty things like you did at the beginning of making it personal. Mayor, you need to give the gavel to Sylvia Lemus, because you're rude and you're condescending to the citizens of this. There was no need. You guys speak for hours on end, and our citizens' comment time is very little. And you're the one that caused that situation. He was not disrupting. You would have given him, if you only had given him the 50 seconds instead of taking 5 minutes out. This is all stupid, and the Planning Commission allowed all of this. So don't worry, your lawyers are going to be needing a very big fund, so make sure to put that into your budget too. That's it.
The next hand is from Jessica Needham. Jessica, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council. I'm playing catch up on a lot of items as I'm fairly new to all of these, and I just wanted to speak on my perspective and say thank you to Mayor Ford for your decorum and your composure. I know if I were in any situation that I had to try to regulate something. It would be very hard and difficult. So I do not envy the job you all have. Again, I don't know the situation and I don't know what's going on, but I just wanted to tell you guys that I do appreciate everything you do for the city, and I'm very thankful. That is it.
Seeing no further hands, and Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Since the issue comes
Sorry,
up every
there's
time-
one more hand that popped up. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Braden Eggert, you have the floor. Mr. Eggert, are you able to?
Hello?
Yeah, we
Hello?
hear you.
Yeah, I wanted to further my my public comment. So basically, at this point in time, I'll prepare a complaint regarding Robert Allen Smith. I'll prepare my tax returns with redactions that show that he's also money laundering, because he's stating that he's paid me in excess of what he's paid me to defraud the government of the United States of America and the taxpayers of the state of California. Further, I'm also preparing a complaint for the city of Sonoma and other jurisdictions regarding prior involvement with past clients that he's represented, where he's giving sweetheart deals to those individuals that have code enforcement hearings. And he's treating people differently based on past representation. And I'll prepare those addresses, and I would like council to direct me exactly who I should forward those complaints to. So if you would answer me on that today, I would appreciate it. Or go ahead and give me a call so I can understand who I need to file that complaint with the city, so we can get something going on that. I rest my case.
And that was the last hand. Thank you, Mayor Ford.
Okay. Thank you all for your comments. Any complaints to the city can be sent to the city manager's office. That's fine. All right. We will move on to the study session.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I know we haven't been going very long, but can I request just a 5-minute break?
absolutely. 5-minute recess. All right, we're back in session, and we'll continue with the study session. Item 7A, the draft final strategic planning summary. We'll start with a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So just real briefly back, as you know, we've had 2 prior meetings related to the budget. The first was kind of a broader vision, mission, strategic goals meeting back in February 21. That was a facilitated meeting. And then we had our initial strategic planning meeting on February 18th. And then at that meeting, we had current projects and programs as well as proposed projects and programs that we talked about. A lot of the council comment were in the minutes that the council had just approved and incorporated into the sheets that are in this packet tonight. So even though this is the start of a 2-year budget, our first 2-year budget, it's anticipated that the projects and programs will be revisited as we get to the midpoint, so after the first year. So it'll look, I think, similar to how it's looked in prior years in terms of revisiting, this to make sure that we're still on track with where we want to go. As we were finalizing this, the materials for the packet tonight, under strategic goals and objectives, it appeared that there were some gaps in the objectives. So they were, staff added some proposed additional objectives to fulfill the goals, which are the items highlighted in yellow. And I'll also point out that for some weird formatting reason, the first Roman numeral letter under each objective just kind of turned into a bullet point instead of a number. So what should be I mean, the first dot should be I, and then so forth all the way down. And then another thing, just as we were working to get all this together for discussion, after we landed on a final vision, it seemed the mission started looking too repetitive as we were looking at the vision as an aspirational thing, and the mission is more of an operational thing, and then the goals and objectives, implementing those and being internally consistent with that. So we are proposing a different mission that hopefully is, the council would agree, is consistent with everything internally, but also hopefully captures what, where we want to go as a mission. The prior one is shown with strikeout, and the new one's in yellow highlight. And then following that are the updated project and program sheets. So this is what the council had previously seen back in February, except each department split into 2 tables. So there's the first table that you see for each department is what we expect to be complete by the end of this current fiscal year, 24-25. And then the next sheet is what we're looking forward to in the next couple fiscal years. And there was a couple small typos I just wanted to point out too. So in the future-looking table, so this is for 25-26 and 26-27 for community development. There's a couple items there on the top. It's the 120 East Cotati project, the ADU project, and the BAFA project. They're all shown as 100% as far as complete at the end of 24-25, but they made it into the future sheet. They should have actually been sorted back to the complete in 24-25 table. And then I noticed a similar thing with Public Works and Engineering. There is the Creek Week event is ongoing, but I guess that's kind of a tweener, could go either way, but normally something shown as 100% would go in the complete in 24-25, and we'd have a new activity. And then lastly, police has a similar, as one of those as well. And this is the social media enhancement and outreach. It's shown as 100%, and it should have been sorted back with 24-25. Those are, both the Creek Week and the other, and the police outreach for social media are, more integrated into operations at this point because they're going to be ongoing events. But anyway, they just got caught up, and we're in the 25, 26, 26, 27 table. And after tonight, the next step in this would be to finalize the tables with any additional comment from the council tonight. And then these tables would ultimately make their way into the budget. So the budget document would ultimately have these tables in them. And we've also been working on metrics. So metrics that would, so you have vision, mission, then you have the goals and objectives, and then you have these projects and programs that would implement the goals and objectives and are obviously consistent all the way up. And we've been talking about metrics for measuring our progress. So like, think of like the quarterly financial updates that finance gives you. So something along those lines where we're looking at ways to measure our progress on certain things that are, hopefully meaningful metrics that aren't just measuring for the sake of measuring, but are measuring progress towards achieving these goals and objectives. And once these tables are final, then we'll know, what the kind of final programs and projects are that we're going to be starting the year with. And then we'll circle back, and then when we talk in the budget, talk about the whole budget, we'll have metrics as part of that conversation as well. And those will be reported on as we go through the years. So that's it for the presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions or answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions first? Okay, questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about Veranda Faletti, the ranch. Since it changed management, did the plan or program change, and will we get like an updated kind of what that will look like?
The new operator was a partner with the prior operator, and so the plan is largely the same. There's some small operational changes, but the plan is basically the same plan that the council discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so discussion. Feedback on the changes. Well, I'll start off. I'm sorry, but I don't think the mission sort of reflects the vision. So I'm still struggling with that mission statement. And I went and read, organization development web pages on the difference and how to come up with and stuff like that. And it just feels like a real different set of adjectives between the vision and the mission. And I'm not sure how to, one thing I'm struggling with is how to propose something different that's not repeating the same words. So that's, an issue you had in rewriting it. But, I had some ideas, but I'm happy to hear what other people think, and I'm willing to step back if everybody likes the new mission.
Well, my initial reaction to the mission was that I wasn't going to bring it up unless someone else did, but since you did, it kind of feels like you will be happy and we will keep you safe. It's just a little bit short, which is good. I think when we had talked about it before, we mentioned that the mission statement should be something that the staff can look at and use that to drive their day-to-day operations. So one part of the strikeout portion that I liked was that it kind of calls out, we're here to serve current and future residents, businesses, and visitors. So maybe something along the lines of, provide excellent services to that list of people, and safe and well-maintained infrastructure to support the vision of the future of the city, or something like that. Just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Can I add something? Yeah, when I saw that too, when it said to maximize community safety, I kind of felt like maybe more of an action, like, create and maintain community safety. And I feel like Previously, we talked about a vibrant, sustainable city for current and future residents, and the vision, resilient, inclusive city. That kind of speaks to culture, so maybe something around culture in there.
Yeah, I had started to write down some ideas and had some of the same words that Councilmember Sparks did, to provide something like to provide excellent. So one thing that a mission does is it says what we do now. So one thing we do now is provide excellent services and either environment or infrastructure or something like that, to support all. And I also like that call out in what's stricken of residents, businesses, and visitors in, and then and then the last part is what I'm struggling with a little bit. Provide excellent services and infrastructure to support all residents, businesses, and visitors in, what I had written down was in leading connected, safe, and vibrant lives, but that doesn't really apply to businesses very much. So that's one struggle I'm having. I'm happy to have the word safe in there. I think that is certainly a very important function. Happiness feels, yeah, too fluffy, kind of like it just, yeah, we'll all be happy. So I'm not sure what
I like what you just said, and you mentioned, though, that you didn't know if it would be as applicable to the business community, but I think it would be, because I think, you know, the same things that you said around safety and vibrant and viable would apply to a business as much as to a person.
Yeah, so maybe it's just the words around, currently I had in leading connected, safe, and vibrant lives. And I don't know, does a business lead a life like a person does? Business life? I know there's a life of a business and the life cycle and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, to provide excellent services and infrastructure to support all residents, businesses, and visitors in leading connected, safe, and vibrant lives. Something like
Or
that.
existence, you could say existence instead of life.
Yeah, but that's
Does that
it's not a very
apply more to
inspiring word to
business
have
or
at the
life
end of
and
the mission.
existence, or-
Can maximize the
We need a
happiness in our
synonym-
existence.
Synonym for life.
So, so provide excellent services. What was the phrase used? Well maintained or
And infrastructure
and infrastructure? Okay.
to support all residents, businesses, and visitors.
And then
To
safe.
help, what about to help all residents, businesses, and visitors thrive?
Yeah, and just leave the more descriptive adjectives to the vision. Is that what you're suggesting?
I was suggesting that the first, can you read back the first part of your sentence?
To provide excellent services and infrastructure to, and then either help or support all residents, businesses, and visitors to, and we could just say to thrive, or, so I said in leading connected, safe, and vibrant lives, but that was before I put business.
We could stick some of the adjectives on the front. So to provide excellent services and safe, well-maintained infrastructure to support residents, businesses, and visitors, or to help residents, businesses, and visitors to thrive. Something like that. Maybe we could, are we having one more?
Yeah, we'll have more shots at this if we need
Okay.
to.
Can we take another stab at it and
Yeah.
maybe come back? Is that,
Or we could do, like you suggest, to provide excellent services and infrastructure to help all residents, businesses, and visitors to thrive in a blank community or something like that, if we wanted to still have something more descriptive. Councilmember Harvey is looking like the sentence is getting long.
It is getting long, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the temptation is always trying to cram it all in there.
Right,
And then
right.
it just becomes so big that it's like a little paragraph, you know?
it's just that if we just end it with to thrive, I'm not sure how much that is to lean on. If that is actually something you're keeping in your head, like what we do, then it just is reduced to provide excellent services and infrastructure, which I guess is fine, but I think the purpose of it's a little more than just that, because the whole point is to help those people and businesses thrive, so that's more than just saying provide them. Yeah, I like it better than happy, I do.
They may not be happy, but they're
Thriving. Want to just for now go with the short version?
I got the elements of a shorter version, so I can try again. We'll come back. We have another study session on the 15th, right? So we can talk again about this specifically. It's just part of the overall,
Okay,
we can another run at it.
thank you. So, what about the rewritten, the added objectives the added sort of actions under the objectives? I don't know if those are actions or explications of the objectives or Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you. I liked the additions. Yeah, I thought they were good and filled in maybe some gaps. One just very wordsmithing, minor thing is that on objective, the unlettered first objective of goal 1, excellent public infrastructure, just like items 1 and 2 start with a verb, and then items 4 and 5 are just a noun. So I'm wondering, we should just unify them probably. Like, I don't care which way, but I guess most everything starts with a verb here, so maybe just provide or maintain reliable sewer systems, or provide well-maintained, something like that. But it's just kind of weird that they don't start with a verb and everything else does.
Any other feedback on the goals and objectives? All right, so what about the project lists? So, were you thinking we'd go through these line by line like we did last time, or just talk about changes from last time, or?
I can, if the council wants it, we can just talk about the changes that we discussed. So I can just go through those real quick. It was, let me bring that up. So for the city manager and recreation department, we, based on the discussion last time, we updated, there was some, I think some duplication on social media and generative AI projects, so they were consolidated. We combined the community engagement opportunities into a single project. So there was a lot of discussion about community engagement and leadership development opportunities. And so the different elements of those were combined and consolidated. That's what you're seeing in the table now. And then based on council direction, we added tobacco retailer's license as a project. And also coordinating with Roanoke Park on that if that's feasible, because I guess Roanoke Park is the other jurisdiction that was called out in the report card. So those are the primary changes to the city manager's office, city manager's and recreation office. And I can just stop there if we want to talk about that first.
So I noticed that the Dogs and Parks ordinance update is yellow, which means the second priority. When do we anticipate the dog park to be complete?
Well, it should be done by this summer sometime. Putnam, we're talking the Putnam Dog Park.
Once it dries out, they have about 5 weeks of work to do.
So my concern about that being down in the yellow is that we'll have a new dog park, but we won't have updated our dogs and park rules to kind of coincide. So that was my only concern with that, is that maybe it should move up and hopefully be closer to when we actually have the dog park available.
Okay.
I don't know what I have to give up to get that, but.
is anticipated to be 0.02 of an FTE. You won't have to give up a big project.
Okay.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was the only thing I was going to, well, there are two things. So thank you for bringing that up because I echo everything Councilmember Harvey said. The other thing was just the library options. I would love to see that bumped up if possible. I'd like to see some kind of book lockers or book vending machines as a possibility in Cotati, and I know it's going to take a while, so the sooner we can start working on it, the better.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually says estimated completion summer 2025 in the table, but then it's,
I think
Says
that's
it's
the
75%.
Yeah, but I don't know what that really includes. I don't think it includes actually getting anything. It's more investigating.
Yeah, it's the investigation part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we actually have as was requested by the council, on a future agenda item, we have an update from our commissioner coming up. I think it's at the next meeting. And so she can update us all on where that is, but I do know that's in conversation at the library system.
anything else on city manager's office and recreation? Okay.
All right, so with community development, based on the feedback, we increased the priority of the community decarbonation awareness efforts. And the vacation rental discussion for initial exploratory discussion to determine potential scope. This is, the feedback from the council was, well, maybe, but we need to know more about it. Like how much revenue would this create? How much of an impact would it create? So that's, so the language there was changed a little bit to be just an exploratory conversation. And then the council would give direction at that point as to whether we would actually move forward on something. We reduced the time spent on development outreach and business outreach projects. That was one of the elements that we requested feedback on, because it's, as Director Hausch had said, it's very scalable. It could be a lot of time, or it could be a little time, or anywhere in between. And so that was ratcheted back a little bit. And we prioritized the self-facility FCC report and post-installation monitoring as code requirements, as opposed to some other we talked about different methods to try to implement that. And in fact, there's a code cleanup ordinance winding its way through the process right now, and hopefully we're going to pick that up.
Should be this fiscal year.
Yeah, so that pick that up sooner rather than later. And then finally adding a future project for building electrification, an ordinance for building electrification if the state of the law becomes clarified, which is still out, and it's unknown at this point, but that was added in there.
And I know staff at RCPA is working on that, so more to come on that.
That's good to hear, yeah. So that's the bulk of the changes in community development.
Any questions, comments? Good to go on? I really should have brought my reading glasses. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I swear it's not a strategy to not get feedback. Yeah, I believe it or not, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, wait a second here. I need to. Scary. Okay, so administrative services. There wasn't any changes to projects or programs. There was a conversation, as you will all recall, about the value of the CalCard purchasing project, and I think Angela had explained that, but I don't. There was no real substantive changes to that department.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Harvey.
So what is the donation program creation?
So we have, I think as Angela had mentioned before, we currently have a canine donation program.
Mm-hmm.
We've recently, through the same mechanism, set up a Vletti Run the Floody Ranch donation option, so people can go to our website and provide donations. And once the barn design is done, so the plan right now is that we're taking, we're gonna have a public meeting about the barn in May sometime. And once that schematic design is done, then we want to look at mechanisms to fund it, including donations. And so we're gonna have to give it some more thought as to what's the best way to do that, because a lot of the donations that we've done historically are typically smaller scale donations. When we're talking construction of a building, that's a different magnitude of donation, so we just want to make sure that we have the right structure in place to best enable that.
And second, then the business license audits, is there concern that we're losing funding because people are not paying their business licenses? So that almost feels to me like we really need to get our arms around that with a process and or whatever it is to kind of stop that leakage.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, that's been something that we do send out letters and reminders, and we have a list of our commercial addresses, because we service utilities as well, so we know where commercial addresses are, and so we do that. However, just because they have an address in Cotati is not exclusive to needing a business license, so there are other requirements if you are doing business for the city or within the city, even if you don't have a physical address. So if somebody's running a business out of their home. So how do we get out to those other pieces and making sure, it's not punitive, that we're working with them and making sure they know what they need in order to operate a business at any location within the city.
So this, and I will add, thank you, Angela. This came up in part, for a revenue reason, potentially. There could be businesses that aren't paying, and it's not just revenue, it's unequal treatment of different businesses. Some kind of get a leg up because they're not following the rules, and others, right? So it's a fairness issue. But it's also as we're talking, this is, like Noah and Angela and all of us are talking about economic development initiatives. It's hard to have a really robust program if you don't even know that you know all the businesses to outreach to and to try to, assist. So all those reasons kind of came together, and it's like we really should make sure that we have a really as close as accurate possible listing of businesses that operate in the city here.
And I would think that ultimately, that is also information that the chamber might be interested in so that they can, pursue membership.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I'd like to see that one moved up. I don't know how big of it's a point. I have to get my, go across here.
They're already a person under just getting the green stuff done.
So it's 0.08. But it brings us money.
Yeah, business licenses are fairly inexpensive, right? It's not a lot of money that the actual license brings in.
Absolutely, yes, we're very affordable for business licenses, yes.
But of course, if they're not paying their sales tax or something like that, that would be good to know.
But, the point that Damien brought up from a fairness perspective, I think we need to get our arms around that, because it is not fair to have an uncompetitive advantage if one has a license and the person in a similar business doesn't.
Good point. Councilmember Sparks.
Thanks. I'm just looking at this generative AI line. I'm wondering what the scope, forgive me if we've talked about this before and I've forgotten, but what is the scope of that project? I notice it's got 0.00 FTEF and it's 25% complete. I'm just curious what that is. And
so we're currently going through an evaluation where they're looking at our top processes that we see could be subject to improvements through AI. So we're working with a consultant for a fee for them to assess these processes that we do that take time and manpower or are paper heavy or those types of processes, and how we can use AI or computer learning or other things in order to provide better services and not waste data entry time. And so they're currently evaluating those for ROI because we want to make sure we're, if it's going to cost us this much money this year, but it really doesn't cost us that much to just use manpower to create it, why invest in it? So we're currently looking at those, so we don't know exactly what we're going to choose for a process for those because they're being looked at currently.
Okay, thank you. That clears it up.
Yes, Vice Mayor. Lewis.
Yeah, just to follow up on the business license, does the MECO, is that still being developed as far as, will they require a business license, or is that outside of other businesses?
So my understanding is they still require a business license.
They still do?
Yes.
Okay, all right, because I think through other cities' input and everyone, I think it probably has evolved a little bit. Yeah, okay. And then my other question was, is volunteer program support, is that internal or external?
That would be volunteer services support. So that's the council brought to us that we wanted to bring forth about more volunteerism in the city, either here at City Hall or throughout the city for programs or events. And so this would be to help kind of support that program because there's other aspects to it. So we wanted to kind of work with the city manager's office with HR and what we can do to help support that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else on administrative services? Okay.
All right, so the next department is Public Works. There weren't changes. So of all the departments, this one is very, as you know, capital projects tend to have long tails on them, and there's not a lot of new stuff that just pops up randomly typically. So there's no project or program changes. But, as we all know, that's subject to budget availability, which will be determined partly tonight, but more so with our capital project and special revenue fund study session, which will be the next meeting. That's where we'll really, once we have a firmer grasp on, after tonight, we'll have a pretty firm grasp on where we are with general fund, and as we progress through the budget planning process, we get you get more and more clarity on some things, like third-party costs and things like that we continue to refine the budget, and we get to the extent the general fund funds these things, we understand what we have available. And, I the other thing that came out of the conversation last time was the importance of well-maintained wells, making sure that, especially with the cost of Sonoma water continuing to increase, what's to make sure that we have good local sources that are online and operating well. And that, I think we tried to reflect that in the list of projects. And like I said, we'll be talking about those projects in more detail on the 15th.
Councilmember Sparks.
Thanks. I just had a question about the Class 1 pathway maintenance, just because the status has it in construction, and I'm trying to remember, I thought that we were going to look at options for decomposed granite versus paved versus dirt, gravel, and kind of bring it back.
But I think that's the status as of the end of this fiscal year, is the idea.
The idea is that hopefully by the end of
by the end of the fiscal year, it
Yeah,
will
by
be
June.
in construction.
by June 30, hopefully we'll be at that point where
Okay.
we've basically just recently awarded it and we're in construction. But you're right, we did commit to bringing it back to have here's the two different bids and here's the cost, the relative cost of each. That'll be part of the award process
Okay.
for the project.
Has that already gone out to?
I don't believe it's gone out to bid yet.
No, I just wanted to mention, I'll be quick. I had been out of town walking on a different walking path, and they had a really nice paved bicycle path next to gravel. It almost had like a gravel shoulder, and people were walking on the gravel shoulder and riding their bikes. So I don't know if it's on the paved part.
Yeah.
And it worked really well on the flat portions. On the hilly portions, water had washed away the gravel on the shoulder and it didn't work well. So I'm wondering if it's not too late to like have a hybrid option that the contractor could look at too, or anyway, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we haven't had the kickoff meeting yet. That's
Okay.
scheduled for tomorrow.
It's what?
Scheduled for tomorrow, the
Okay,
kickoff
very
meeting.
timely for me to bring this up then. If you want, I can show you pictures after the meeting of the pathway and what it looked like. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Councilmember Harvey.
Yeah. At our, I don't know, one of our last meetings, we talked about the rate study, and we got that information after the rate study, so we already know that what was said was nothing could be changed because it was already done. So since this is a 2-year budget, I'm feeling like, since we already know we're behind the 8 ball here, that we need to plan for another one, even if it's not next year, but the year after, because we're already inadequate, because we got that information after the fact.
I'm sorry, for the what?
For the water rates.
The water rates, yeah.
When, what was said was we got information after, which makes the rates inadequate, and it's just gonna get worse, and, you know, us trying to keep, you know, a steady stream rather than, you know, big spikes, we need to plan for another one since we already know that the one we did is inadequate.
I know that the rate consultant and Craig have been evaluating those issues, you know, the Sonoma water rate, for example, and some of these other things that came up.
Yeah.
And I believe we're going to be, I mean, the goal was to be prepared to have that discussion when we come back with to talk about what the, you know, what the relative impacts of those things are.
Okay, I just want to be sure that if we need to do another one, that we get it in here so we don't have to add it later. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah, okay.
I just had a question down under the third priorities on vegetation management on the Laguna de Santa Rosa. Is that something that ideally we would do every other year or just on an as-need-be basis? Because it's just on hold right now.
Yeah, I don't think we have budget to do it every year. And much of it's maintained by Sonoma Water. So it's got a little more discretion. We do get complaints about the perceived impact of the growth on the flow capacity of the Laguna. So it's something we keep an eye on and have that item in the budget, but it's not something we need to do every single year.
And is our part of the responsibility to keep the vegetation out of the water flow so the water continues to flow, or is it more the banks or everything?
The capacity of the channel is a priority, and
yeah, I mean,
I think
Sonoma
that's
Water,
most of it.
Sonoma Water, I mean, even the entire channel that goes through Cotati, even in the part that's not owned by us, the hydraulic capacity is maintained by the water agency. And so in terms of like in the channel, like, you know, whatever's happening there, Sonoma Water is, that's their role, is to maintain the flood capacity of it. Yeah, so they do that type of vegetation management, and then we typically will do, you know, mowing on the top of banks, and maybe some thinning if it gets too dense in certain areas. Tree trimming there.
Is that part of this, or is that more ongoing maintenance, the mowing and things like that, or is that part of this?
My understanding is that's ongoing the mowing's ongoing maintenance.
Okay,
but, yeah.
okay. So with the vegetation management, is that one big project then where you'd have to come in and like dredge the whole thing at once to do that project, or is it more piecemeal? I'm just trying to get an understanding of it.
I think it's
Yeah,
top
no,
of bank
It's more
vegetation.
surgical than that.
Okay.
Because Cotati Critters did put a lot of effort into planting native plants there. There are some invasive species that have popped up, so we're consulting with them as to what would be appropriate and what's not. So it's, when I say surgical, it's like taking out the non-invasive, taking out the invasive plants and trimming back the ones that have overgrown, to keep the character of that. It's a beautiful trail.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that vegetation management is top of bank type management, more than in the channel. That's more of a water agency role.
Thank you.
Follow up on that. Did you say you're working with Sonoma Critters on that, or just specific people? I guess I didn't know there were still.
Yeah, yes, we have an on line of communication with Jenny Blaker.
Oh, okay, so the former members of the group, because I don't think the group exists anymore.
The group does not exist anymore, no. It's
Okay,
a
that's
former
what I was just
member, yeah.
checking. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anything more on Public Works and Engineering? Okay, let's go on to the last department.
Okay, so last but not least is police. And I should mention, by the way, we have Chief Simmons online tonight if there's any questions for the police that I can't answer. So last time we had this conversation, the council had just expressed a desire to just be, just continue to be really proactive in terms of engagement with the community. And also, the direction was to remove the industrial area parking ordinance, lights on project, the Bulla Wrap deployment, at least at this time, unless there's a need in the future to bring it back and have a conversation again. But those should all be removed from the future projects list. And that was, I think, it for police.
Any questions or comments on the police project list? Okay. Is that all the, let's see, so we're not actually going to approve the mission statement today. We're just going to take one more crack at it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And we've reviewed the project lists, but we're not approving those, right? So we don't need a motion at this point. Is that or do you want it?
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation says review and approve, but I think as long as, I have direction from council that aside from the mission, the rest of it looks good, then I'm good.
We're there, right?
There was one thing a late thought when we were looking through these projects. There's one on community engagement opportunities. And I thought that just might be something to include in the mission statement, maybe, the community engagement, because in our vision we have connected community.
Right.
Maybe there's a tie-in.
Ooh, engaged instead of connected in the mission. Use the word engaged. Just to not repeat the same words in the two.
Right.
Well, and then there's an actual project that
Right,
supports that too.
right.
which
That's a good point.
I thought that was
Yeah.
good.
It's a thesaurus exercise, yeah. I know. Okay. Great.
Okay, so are we okay on 7A, then the strategic planning summary? And we go on to the budget study session for 2025-26? Okay, and 26-27, great. Start with the staff report.
We're going to deal with the whole shebang. So good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public, remote and looking at this in the future, hopefully. Tonight is our first budget study session covering the operating section for the general fund for the city. This is also our first session where we're presenting on both the proposed budget years for 25-26 and 26-27. Next slide, please. With this presentation, we'll be going over the tentative budget schedule, the information that went into the proposed budget, and the summary of the revenues and expenditures. The agenda packet does not include the goals and objectives because we just went over them in the previous item, but it does include the general fund revenues and expenditures detail and summary reports, and also the detail on contract services and budgeted staffing that it was included for the report. Next slide. Here's again that schedule Damian was just referring to. So we met on February 20th to do our strategic planning session. So just went over the projects in detail as to what's going to end up on our proposed budgets for projects. This is our first study session. We'll have another study session to cover the rest of our funds on April 15th. And tentatively, fingers crossed, everything's going to come together and we'll have a budget ready for adoption on June 10th, along with our updated policies, our GAN limit, and the salary schedule, all for council adoption. Next slide. So what goes into the budget, especially the general fund? So for revenues, we try and obtain the best information possible. The majority of the city's general fund revenues are derived from sales tax, followed by property tax. And while these revenue sources have been fairly stable, current projections for them say that they're really going to stay flat for the next couple years. Some of the driving forces are an increased propensity for consumers to save due to uncertainty in the market. So additionally, with higher interest rates, this has slowed the resale housing market as individuals choose to stay put with a lower rate mortgage as opposed to moving over into different mortgage rates or mortgage loans. Other revenues, we are anticipating to have slow growth, and we don't currently have any budgeted TOT or transient occupancy tax included within the budget currently. So if that changes, we will then add it to our budget. Next slide. So unlike revenues, the expenses for the city are on an increasing trajectory. This year, we're altered our budget process quite a bit. I don't know if department heads are super happy with us, but we started with a budget at 0. And so every line item, you got to go in and add all of your detail for the individual expenses within each line item. And so we built that detail for each of those expenditures based on actual amounts or your projections for them. So this was both for the 2025-26 and the 26-27 year. We did allow, though, for the 26-27 year, since you've already built out the detail for 25-26, you know, let's just build an estimated escalator. If you don't know the actual amounts that you're going to have for the year, it's reasonable to assume an 2.8%, not an 8%, 2.8% increase. Some continuing trends that we have included are the continued use of contract services with an increase with the cost of labor. And new are the increases in credit card processing fees as we've adopted our operations to accept more credit card payments from customers in order to ease their process to get us funds for permits, or we've now moved utility bills to monthly, and so there's more processing, not dollar amounts, but each transaction has that fee, and so we have seen those fees significantly increase. However, our cash and meeting revenues have leveled, so it's been better as far as cash flow coming in has happened. The budget does not include an ADP for CalPERS for either year for 25-26 or 26-27, although we do include the full payment for each year in order to save on those interest charges. Some outstanding final items that we weren't able to kind of get into here, so we have projections based on other estimates, are the insurance costs, the transfers, of course, because that'll be in our final, our next session. We'll have the transfers for capital projects and whatnot, and then our IT services costs. We kind of just got those last minute and we're able to get them in, and so those will be revised for the next session. Next slide. So we're going to get down into the info for the general fund for both years. Next slide. So for those who may not know, the general fund is the primary fund used by the city for regular government operations. This includes everything recreation, police services, public works, admin services, and so this is where the bulk of what you consider city government is located. The revenues received in these funds are general purpose and as such are subject to discretion of council in this budgeting process. And we set forth how these revenues are to be used. Next slide. So some overall highlights for the general fund in total for the budget. So the city does require a 25% operating reserve per policy. Overall revenues increased in 24-25, but are expected to be flat in future years at less than a 2% increase over each year. We have processed ADPs to CalPERS in prior years, with the largest in 21-22, and as such, those comparison numbers on the expenses side, specifically the salaries and benefits, you can't really compare across those years because there is a significant outlier within those years. And so that's unusual. Staffing cost has continued to increase slightly, but for budget years 25-26 and 26-27, it's increased due to, again, we have that full staffing budgeting process where we rely on full employment budgeting, plus increase in health and benefit expenses. Other charges changes were based on insurance, is based on estimates, which was ranging from 10 to 20%, depending on what the different type of insurance was. Capital outlay decreased due to the timing of replacement of vehicles and equipment. And then utilities costs increased due to increased charges for PG&E and water. And so that's something you'll see as a theme across not just the general fund, but across all funds in the next study session as well. Next slide. So here's the summary of the general fund operating revenues. Sorry, that last column is mismarked as 24-25. It really is 26-27. There is actually an additional 100,000 that's missing in the other revenue line item. So that should be a total of 256,000, leading to a total change of 304,000 over the year, or 3%. So that's, sorry for that error. It will be fixed going forward. And there is detail report for revenues that is correct. And we'll make sure it's all tied out and complete for the next study session. But again, it does show that comparing the estimated to our proposed budget, it's very flat at less than 1% change. And then the subsequent year, 26-27, compared to our proposed 25-26, is a 3% increase. Next slide. So here's the comparative revenues between 24-25, and this is the estimated actuals and the proposed 25-26 budget year. So really, you can see in the graphic there is not much change that we're expecting. They're almost lined up on each other within each of the line items on the graph. Next slide. Some of my favorite box chart. Sorry, it's all black and maybe harder to read. So the proportional inflows of revenues for 25-26, showing that we continue to have the key revenues of sales tax, which is approximately 50% of our revenues, quickly followed by property tax. Next slide. And again, for 26-27, not much change in the percentage of allocation. Just the anticipated inflows have increased slightly. So again, sales tax still that, 50-ish%, and property tax following right behind. Next slide. So now getting down into why we anticipate change or lack thereof. Property tax does not include any significant changes, which would come from new developments or again that real estate turnover where the valuation changes. And so we're really only applying that 2% change for the assessed value. Sales tax is still fraught with economic uncertainty. Again, when I said this back in 2020, I'll keep thinking these things are going to drop off my slides, but they unfortunately don't. But in 2020, it kind of swung the other way. Everything was going to shut down, COVID, nobody was going to do any shopping. And we found that it was completely the opposite, right? Everyone decided to really enjoy the stores that we had here, continued shopping online, and we kind of had a little bit of a bump due to COVID. However, these are very different uncertain times where people are deciding to conserve. And so we'll see if that continues to go as we move forward. We will have updated estimates from our consultants for our sales tax before we adopt the final budget. Probably it won't be in time for our next study session, but it will be in time before we adopt the budget, so we'll present on any changes there. Next slide. So for other tax, this is primarily derived from cannabis business tax, which is estimated at just under $800,000 for 24-25. This is continuing to stabilize as a business. I know we just reported out on our quarterly report that we might be losing one of them, but they're sticking around, and it's seeming like they're continuing to grow slowly, but it's somewhat stabilizing as we have some really good businesses here in our city. Sales tax permits and franchises. I did note, so this is on packet page 28, the franchise tax for 24 and 25, the adopted budget was set at just $300,000, when it really should have been closer to $400,000. So that was an error on the adopted budget, and thus the change for the estimated actuals for the year is more in line with what we should expect and should have expected. Next slide. Other agencies, this is primarily derived from our public safety contract with Sonoma State University. And so again, that just changes with that same contract. For charges for services, these are primarily derived from development reimbursements, police charges, and permit fees. And so there again, we have some uncertainty around permit fees, and so we try to keep that on maybe a little bit more of a conservative side because we don't know what's going to develop when and how. So again, it's just a best estimate based on historicals. Other revenues include contract class revenues for recreation, which is expected to increase. They're actually doing great with what programs and venues they're providing, and our community is very engaged in using our classrooms in the Katati Room and the Veterans Building for events. This is offset by slowing investment returns, which is also included in the other revenues, as both rates are decreasing as well as the balance of funds available for investments are declining due to our use of those funds for capital projects. Next slide. So that was the summary of the revenues. I don't know if we want to break and talk to revenues or go through the rest of it and cover.
Sure, let's see if
everything.
anybody has any revenues questions. Yeah, Vice Mayor Lemus.
Yeah, for the cannabis tax, is there any increase? They just recently opened their first lounge, which is in Northern California, I think, our area. Is there any projected increases?
I don't have a reasonable basis for increasing it. I'm assuming there will be increased revenue from that as they do additional sales in support of tourists or others coming to use the lounge. However, at this point in time, we really can't quantify like how much that's going to be.
And I expect we'll catch that as we get into updates, you know, like mid-years.
Right.
And, you know, if we start seeing more positive growth in revenue, then we'll update it. But as Angela said, we only can base it on past trends. There's
Okay, all right, thank you.
I think that's it. You can proceed with
Perfect.
expenses.
We will proceed into the outflows. So here's some overall highlights on the outflows. I know we've already kind of covered some of these, but I also want to point out, so for CalPERS, we did have the additional discretionary payment that we paid out in 24-25, and the future years do not include any additional discretionary payments. Those would come back when Ridgeline comes back, and we talk about it when we have the new actuarial reports and have a plan on any additional payments at that time. For contract services in packet PDF page 35, we have our allocated contract services, and these are services that are split all across our department based on our FTE allocation. So even myself, while I'm admin services, my FTE is not 100% admin services. I'm allocated across water and sewer successor agency. And so we have a piece that gets allocated to each of those. So again, as PD, the police department has the highest FTE because they have the highest percentage of personnel. They get allocated the largest percentage of each of these contracts. These are based on full FTE. So we continue to evaluate our FTE as budgeted to make sure those are also allocated appropriately. For insurance increases, as I stated, these are using the estimates we've received. However, they're not being finalized, and we're not sure that we'll actually get final numbers until we're in the fiscal year. So we'll keep requesting them and seeing what we can get, but we know to plan on something significant like we plan on between the 10 and 20% as is included in the provided pages. All departments are budgeted at full staff. Estimates are, we have the existing staff, which is included in the estimated actuals. So those are our projections based on what we've expended to date and then forecast that forward versus the proposed budgets, which are that full staff budget. It includes some negotiated MOUs. So we have the CEA MOU, which will be coming forward in this part, and then part of the non-rep will be like starting during this point in time in 26, 27. And there's also more information on PDF packet page 26 and 31 related to those pieces, and then the FTE schedule is on PDF packet page 36 through 38. That's where it shows the changing in the staffing. Really, there's zero changes. They're just individuals that we're hoping to elevate to new positions, and so there's title changes. And so you'll see a negative number next to one and a positive number next to another, and it really is just the change in the same staff person to a new title. Next slide. So this is a summary schedule of operating expenses for the fiscal year proposed and estimated, broken down by category of expense. The fiscal year 25-26 has a 5% increase from budget, and fiscal year 26-27 has a 2% increase from the proposed budget of fiscal year 25-26. Main changes to note are the reduction in capital outlay. This is historically where the vehicle and equipment replacement charges were located. That's been moved to repairs and maintenance as we look to really think of it more holistically as how we're not just replacing vehicles, but we're upfitting them or changing them to better suit our needs. And these are charges that then go to the vehicle replacement schedule, and then the vehicle replacement fund purchases or makes those adaptations to the vehicles or equipment as needed. Legal does have some continuing expenses. These are primarily related to the mobile home park litigation item. So those are really the outstanding items and based on the categories outside of what we already talked about for salaries and benefits for CalPERS, MOUs, and then contract services and insurance. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of expenditures by departments, which we'll be going into further detail on subsequent slides. The details for these expenditures by department and category are on packet pages, PDF pages 32 through 34. Next slide. So instead of doing another box chart, we do the pie chart for our expenditures, where we're showing the operating expenditures by department. I'm sorry for the overlay and all the titles. When you end up having little pieces of the pie and your titles are so much bigger, it kind of overlaps them. But you can just see majority of it is the police services. Again, they have the largest of TE. Next slide. So again, for 26-27, this is departmental expenditures. Kind of fixed a little bit more of the graph so you can see more of the titles. But again, not much change in the pie slices, just the dollars that go around it. Next slide. Provided in packet pages, I think it was 32 to 30, yeah, 35, packet page 35. We have the summary of the allocated contract services. Excuse me, let me get back to my slide. And so it really is continuing where we see a trend in the increase in the cost of our contract services. With the zero-based budgeting, we've always done this where we evaluate all of these contracts every single year. So this is not something new, the zero-based for this piece. This piece, we go through these every single time and make sure that they're consistent with what projects and what consultants and what contractors we need to provide these services at any point in time. As you can tell, the biggest piece of this continues to be insurance, followed then by tech and data as we continue to try and improve our network and our security, as well as the majority of our services are provided through IT when we're talking about software related ERP systems and whatnot. Next slide. So a little bit more detail, getting granular into the different departments. The City Council continues to have the allocated share of indirect cost, utilities and contract services. So as utilities increase, contract services increase, that proportion then that's allocated increases. We have significant other costs due to dues and subscriptions, travel and allocated insurance. And then in 26-27, we have those election fees. For the city manager's department, really the only change is a staffing promotion expected for the city clerk. Next slide. For the admin services department, we have increased fiscal fees related to the general fund revenues. So as we get those revenues, we don't get them for free. We have to pay someone else to maintain them and submit them to us on our behalf, so the state, gets to charge us for collecting our sales tax and providing it to us, which I don't want to do that, so it's okay, but those are also increasing. We also have one-time expenditures for a possible AI project, as previously discussed, as well as a business license audit support if needed. The Community Development Department has the removal of the developmental funded professional contracts. So they're also continuing to build permit revenue to bring on more projects and move things forward. And then they have a contract for the permitting process review in 25-26. So that's where we're bringing in someone to kind of look at that permitting process, evaluate what the steps are, how to maybe make it more streamlined in coordination with the Public Works Department, so it's kind of shared between the two. The Public Works Department, they have rebidding of the landscaping and janitorial contracts. So we want to make sure we're doing the best for our city at the best rate. We're expecting that to also land us with higher landscaping costs for in the fiscal years. We have continued capital outlay for equipment, so majority of the other equipment and vehicles do pertain to the Public Works Department, as they do have a new maintenance truck that needs to be replaced, and some other accessories and equipment. Veranda Flooding Ranch is also embedded within the Public Works Department, and that's included at around $200,000 per year for operations. Next slide. So for the police services, it includes continued investment in technology services through the consortium. We have other expenses that are allocated. Again, they get hit hardest with the insurance and legal and anything else that's allocated due to their FTE. They do have some overtime increases as proportionate to their rate increases or negotiated MOU. And so with that, the overtime also increases proportionately with that. We do also have a cost of transitioning weapons from a .45 caliber to a 9mm, and so this will be optional, where I believe that the officers can then change to different equipment to better fit the needs of the police department. And we do include the vehicle changes. So currently we had a vehicle replacement scheduled for 24-25. That's been delayed as we kind of do some different upfitting and changing of the fleet that we have on hand. And so we've pushed that to subsequent years in 25-26, and then 26-27 we'll be replacing a vehicle in each year. For the recreation, really they're trying to keep things level as possible over there, with really only those allocated bank fees due to continued events and whatnot. And so they have a little bit more of those banking fees happen as they continue to do more work and take in more revenue through merchant services and credit cards. Code compliance, we're hoping that will return back to a normal compliance activity. And so we're hoping that those expenses will be coming down as that gets more normalized for regular activity. And so that's my piece on expenses. I can take questions now or just conclude it and then take questions, okay? So we really are striving for a balanced budget. We still don't have our transfers out yet for capital projects, so we're evaluating that, but right now it is balanced. We meet the operating expenditures with the operating revenues. We're gonna continue to strive to get down to the detail and understand all the different pieces that are going into the budget as we move forward. If there's any changes, we're going to bring them forward to you, but not before our next meeting, because we're meeting again already on the 15th. And the staff are continued to really be as transparent and accountable to all these line item expenditures that we're proposing as possible. That's it.
And actually, Mayor, before you take it over, just a real quick thing, I just want to reiterate a couple things, if it wasn't apparent from what Angela had said, is, you know, we're seeing, this year, we're seeing continued large increases in insurance. And you know, so for the first time, we're over like all of our insurance expenses. And this isn't something unique to Cotati, it's just the insurance industry. But we're over $1 million, you know, for insurance premiums, which is a new thing. And you compare that to like the pension UAL, it's more than that, right? The pension UALs are around 900,000. So this is like, it's over $1 million. So it's a bigger expense annually than even like pensions, for example. At least the unfunded liability part of it. And then, and to kind of put it all, you know, to kind of put it all into, context, I guess we have an $11 million general fund. So, you have $11 million there. You have roughly $6 million in staff expenses, $1 million insurance, $1 million in UAL. I mean, these are rough numbers because some of it gets allocated to other departments, but basically that's it. And then the remaining, the remaining amount has to be used for all of our contract services, utilities, reserves, CIP. So there's a lot, I mean, as Angela had stated, fortunately, unlike some other cities around us at this moment who are upside down with their operating expenses, we're still okay. Our operating revenue still exceeds our operating expenses. So fundamentally that's good, right? That's a good thing. It just means that the gap between them, narrows if you continue to have flat revenue with continually increasing expenses. And at some point, one of the two has to change, otherwise the lines cross, and then you're in trouble like some of our neighboring cities. So that's not in the next 2 years. We don't see that in the budget, but that's just just wanted to point that out if it wasn't already apparent.
Thank you. All right, questions for staff? Go ahead.
On page 16, Angela, when you talked about the 2 MOUs currently being negotiated, will those negotiations be complete before we get the final budget, or?
No, so there's no MOUs currently under negotiation. Sorry, that was, there are included in the budget, starting for 2 negotiations. So that is incorrect on that slide.
Okay.
So the budget includes expenses related to negotiations for future ones. There's no currently under evaluation right now.
Okay, so the only thing included are the current MOUs that we have.
Correct.
So I just guess want to state the obvious. When those MOUs happen, we will get updates for whatever is the outcome of those MOUs, which impact that, when that happens.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If no other questions, then any conversation, discussion? Oh, go ahead.
I would just like to thank Angela. I had previous questions, and she spent time with me to answer my questions, so thank you, Angela.
And I guess I should have asked this as a question, but I continue to be baffled by how we handle capital projects and how they're not in the budget. And so can you just help me understand the difference between where did it go? There's a capital outlay line, 809, but that's different than capital projects somehow. And the transfers, you said, to capital projects aren't reflected here yet, right? Because we're just kind of waiting to see how much money is there to be able to transfer? Is that right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So-
Yes.
So what's the capital outlay line?
Capital outlay is probably a name within our ERP system that I need to change. So previously, that's where transfers to our vehicle replacement fund or other minor capital pieces, what we consider capitalized, because we're going to capitalize them, but they weren't capital in the nature of government capital.
Yeah, sorry,
And
you
so-
did say that, sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's good. Okay, and so is the way we handle it basically towards the end of this fiscal year, we see, like our, the projected actuals for this year in revenue is about 1.3 million more than the projected actual expenses for the general fund, and so the idea is that's how much we'd have left to allocate to reserves or capital expenses, or,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That would roll into reserves, yes.
oh, so it just sort of automatically goes in reserves and then transfers are out of reserves to capital projects when we fund capital projects?
So, because this is all just the operating side of it, so the transfers are already in the budget, they're not a part of the operating piece of it. And so this would be what goes to pay for, capital expense, you're correct, it would go to pay for those, but we already have those included in the budget as well. And so the change between the two would be what would be the addition to reserves. So
Right.
we've already, right, does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
This is great detail to have. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay. Let's see. So I think this is just a discussion. We're not taking any action on this item tonight, right? We have one more study session for the other funds, and then final budget is when we'll adopt it. Okay, great. Anything more? Anything more from staff? From the council? All right, was there information received after the agenda was posted?
There were a few items received. Everything that was received was posted to the HTML agenda and is available here in print in the chamber tonight. Thank you.
Great. And with that, we'll adjourn at 7:42 and see you all next week.